Good morning everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be reviewing this Audi Q7. So this one in particular is owned by Hamworthy Car Centre. They've got it for sale at the moment. Now don't get me wrong, this is not the newest Audi Q7 you can get, but I still think that it's a very modern looking vehicle. It's by no means an old one, but the price what you can pick these up for is unbelievable in comparison to what they were new. So let's take a look at the vehicle. Now of course the reason why most people want to buy one of these cars is because it is a big family car. And as you can see, I'm sat in the back here, and to be honest it's one of the most spacious cars I've ever sat in. There's ample knee room. I mean, I've got more than enough. I've just been sat in the front seat as well, so this is not positioned unreasonably, and I've got more than enough room here. I could even get some bags in front with me. That being said, for a car that's so high off the ground, there's still quite a considerable transmission tunnel. So if you are sat in the middle seat, you're either going to have to put your feet on that or either side of it. But I think it's big enough to put your feet on it personally. This one in particular has got the smoker's package, so it's got ashtrays. I didn't think they did that anymore, but it seems that they do. It's got rear dual climate control, so that means quad climate control for the full vehicle. You can control everything in the rear, whether that's temperature, whether it's blowing on your face, on your feet. It's all controllable from back here. You can also just turn it off completely with the push of a button. You've also got two 12-volt power supplies, perfect for hooking up them iPads for the kids or just some chargers for the people sat in the back. There's some decent sized cubby holes on the doors. You could probably get a large 1 litre bottle in there, and the headroom is pretty considerable. Once these seats are down, you've got various mounting holes to tether stuff to, and that includes the rear seats, which we'll go check out right now. Now the rear seats are operated by some buttons just here. There is also some buttons to access from the front. However, they're fouled by this parcel shelf that sticks in there. Now personally, if this was my vehicle, I'd probably take this out and leave it out because it is a bit of a hindrance. So first of all, I've got to reach through and remove this parcel shelf. Then once this is out, I can press the buttons to operate. The seat's coming up, and that doesn't leave anywhere for this parcel shelf to quite sit right. Now it can tuck in here and just about fit here, but it's not ideal because you're stretching the storage pocket there, and you're also long term going to damage the interior trim just up there. It can fit flat like this, but it is just a bit more of a squeeze, and for what it's worth, I think I'd probably just leave it out. So now we've got the back seats up. To access them, we've got a little lever just here. We press that in, we lift the seat up, and there's our access into the back. You can see the folding seat buttons just down here. Now although these seats are made for an adult, they're obviously not that ideal for an adult. They're perfect for putting a couple of kids in the back, however they're not ideal for putting grandma and granddad in the back. This position would undoubtedly crumble some very delicate hips. That being said, both of the rear seats do have ISOFIX. However, again, it's not something that I would look forward to trying to strap a child in the back. It is a very awkward place to get to, but you do have the utility there should you see it necessary. You do have a small water bottle area, and you could probably fit a phone here as well. However, there's no 12-volt outputs here, so to charge anything, you'd be looking at leeching some power from the middle row or the boot. Now, of course, it wouldn't be a true family car test without the fitting of a child's seat. The cushions just removed, they're clipped in. You've then got your ISOFIX, which is very easily accessible compared to most cars. The doors open exceptionally wide. And the fitting is a breeze. So sat in the passenger seat, there is one slight thing that does annoy me, and that's this seat is all the way back. It won't go any further back. And this glove box fouls on my knees, it doesn't open fully. Now for a car this big, you'd expect to have access to the glove box, even if the seat's not all the way back, but in this instance, you don't. Now then, of course, this is a family car, but first and foremost, I think it is a luxury car as well. You've got lots of optional extras in here. You've got the pop-up screen, the virtual dash. This one in particular is S-Line spec, so that means you get the nice steering wheel, the nice seats, the side skirts, the wheels. This one also has Quattro, and although that doesn't mean it's an off-road beast, it's certainly a good utility to have during the winter. These vehicles come in varied engine sizes. Initially they only came in a 3-litre TDI V6 engine, which is common throughout the Audi range, but now you can get them in varied setups, including the e-tron range, which I think is my personal favourite looking at the specs. It's very, very quick, very economical. But if you are about that speed and you need a family wagon, then do not fear, because there is an SQ7 version of this, and that thing looks insane. This one, what I'm driving, is the 3-litre V6 option. And it's definitely got some go for such a big car. There's no doubt about that. It pulls well. This gearbox has always been one of my favourites. I've had a DSG in 4 of my personal cars now, including my Transporter. It's nice to have that flappy paddle ability, although between me and you, once you've used it once, you'll probably never use it again. And one thing I think Audi have done really well with this interior is that on the face of things, you think everything's really spread out, it looks very spacious, but everything is within reach. Now, I'm not a particularly large man, I'm 6 foot, I'm probably an average size male for the UK, and everything is within reach for me. I can touch everything. I can turn the passenger's heated seat on from where I'm sat right now. And you can really feel that quattro digging in on this wet surface, especially when you're accelerating. You do have this Audi touchpad that has been introduced from this model of car. You can draw on this. Apparently it makes the MMI system a lot easier to navigate. I personally never had much of an issue with the MMI system in the previous Audis. I did always feel it was lacking a touchscreen, and we are still lacking a touchscreen. Nothing goes on when I touch that screen, and it's all controlled down here by this touchpad and a number section. Now, of course, Audi have brought this in because they've told you it's easier, but I do think it's going to take some getting used to if you're new to this type of car. Now, although you might be watching this video thinking this car is probably way out of my price range, well, you might be correct in that. It is an expensive car, and certainly from new, it is a very, very expensive car. That being said though, a car like this used with 50,000 miles on the clock is currently retailing at sub 30 grand. Now, if you're in the market for a 7-seater multi-personnel vehicle, and for example you wanted to get a Ford S-Max and have your soul sucked out of your body, then you'd be looking at a very similar price for, of course, a lot newer of an S-Max than this. However, it's not quite this, and I think that's where this vehicle sits quite nicely. Is that if you were looking for a new vehicle and you were going to get an S-Max and you came across this with all its extras and all its luxuries, then I know for sure that I would be picking this Audi Q7. If the year is something that bothers you, a £250 vanity plate would sure hide that year. But I think that this model Audi is still way out-specking a brand new S-Max, and for sure you're going to look better driving it. Now, one thing this might lack that the S-Max does have is that all those extra little cubby holes or spaces or storage spaces what the S-Max has, because that is primarily a family vehicle and only a family vehicle. And this is probably sitting in between the family vehicle plus high-end business executive vehicle. So those little cubby holes what you'd normally find in the floor of an S-Max and various other places, they're not in the Q7. But it's a well-worthy trade to get something with a virtual dash, quad climate control, DSG. There's not much that you have to operate manually on this vehicle. Everything seems to have its own button, whether it needs it or not. One thing in particular is this drive select. There's a drive select button on the dash here, and if you press that, you can change whatever drive mode you want to be in. So from off-road to efficiency, comfort, auto, dynamic and individual, but then you can't select them. So you can go up and down, but to select them, you need to use the MMI system and press OK on it, and then it will select it. So those buttons are quite redundant because you can access that through the MMI system anyway, and maybe you would like to change it on the fly if you did venture off-road on this, and that would make it easier. But I think ultimately the chances of taking this vehicle off-road are very, very slim. Now, although this is a big vehicle, it doesn't feel too imposing on the road. Now, of course, I've had big vehicles before. I've currently got a Transporter T6 and an X6. Now, the X6, when you get in that, it feels really imposing. You wonder about turning corners, and although you've always got loads of extra space, I think just the overall dynamic of the car feels a lot bigger than it is. Whereas I think Audi have managed to get this car looking massive, but keep it in a relatively small-ish package, and you don't feel too imposing on other drivers on the road. So this vehicle in particular has got the electric seats. Now, I like the Audis for their electric seat systems, or I always have done in the past, because they've usually got some operating buttons that are just held on the door handle just to my right. You can usually have up to 3 settings, and you can press them and that'll operate the steering wheel and seat into the position that you have set it up for. Now, on this vehicle in particular, it doesn't seem to have these buttons. Now, normally when you opt for the electric seat option in an Audi, these buttons come as standard. I have got a little wheel that turns, that changes different selected areas of the seat, but it doesn't seem to change my seating position. Now, one thing that these new Audis have, although they don't have them buttons, is that the keys can be set up to an individual driver. So you can have a key and your partner can have a key, and your key can be set up for you and your partner's key for them. It will save your steering wheel position and your seat position, so when you unlock the vehicle, it automatically goes to your position, ready for you to drive the vehicle. I do think that the button option were extra to have some nice buttons on the side here, because then you don't need to have your own keys, you can share keys, etc. But it seems that's the way Audi is going, looking forward into electric seat mobility. Now, I think an optional extra that I would definitely opt for if I were getting one of these is the S-Line spec, simply for the interior. These seats are typically Audi soft leather. When you compare these to the sorts of BMW leather you can get, it's just a different standard. These seats hug you, they're supple, they're nice, the heated seats are a nice extra to have in them, and I think it just transforms that interior from what is already a very nice interior. Don't get me wrong, it is going to be a nice interior regardless of if you get the S-Line, but it just takes that up that next level and it just feels a lot more sporty and upper class in here with the S-Line spec. You have a plethora of airbags. This vehicle has got quite a decent safety rating. Even with the multiple headrests in the rear, you've still got a very good visibility behind you, and again, when compared to something like my X6, that is really nice to have. My X6 may as well not have a back window. Ironically, the indicators on this particular Audi do work, so if you do decide you want to use them, they have the auto cancelling function, so you don't even have to worry about turning them off. One thing I have found with this modern style of gear shifter, what you have in these automatics, is that it's no longer mechanical, so you can't really feel yourself putting it into gear. And I do find, for sure for me, and I'm sure it's something I'd get used to, is that trying to put it from reverse into drive is not always as successful as I might like to think. I'm often hitting neutral and then I'm having to pull it back again into drive. You also don't have the park on the shifter itself anymore. It's now a button, so you press the button when you come to park. Hiya, can I get a cinnamon spiced cappuccino, please?
Sure, is that medium one?
Medium, yeah, please.
Yeah, anything else?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, just driving around when you can.
Thank you. Now, this vehicle in particular has apparently got 268 brake horsepower, which is not massive by modern standards, but it's more than enough to drag this thing to 60 in 6.5 seconds, which for a vehicle of this size is quick. It's also apparently got 443 foot-pounds of torque, so when you are towing, that would definitely come in useful. This one can average 47.9 miles per gallon, although that is very sceptical. Not only do I think that would be a difficult number to achieve from this engine, but Audi have not got the best track record of talking about efficiency. This is insurance group 41, and to tax it, it's only £205 a year. Now, I personally would have expected a lot more for a vehicle of this size and stature, but yeah, only £205 a year. Of course, that can go lower with the e-tron variant, and that can go much higher with the SQ7 variant. That was so hot, I just tried to play that off on the camera, but that was that was so hot. This thing will continue pulling until 145 miles per hour. I'm sure it would sit at 120, 130 comfortably on the autobahns of Germany. I personally love this new style steering wheel that Audi has come up with. Of course, it's got all the same features as the last one. The airbag's a little bit smaller, a different shape, but it just feels real good to hold. It's a nice grab, and all the buttons are as accessible as they were before. But overall, I think it just modernises that interior. The extending vents, which, believe it or not, are all functional. When I first saw this, I thought, oh, those vents in the middle are going to be similar to some of the earlier Passats, where they were just dummy vents, just to continue the lines across. But all these vents are functional. They all emit hot air, or at least I feel like they do. Although it's a 7-seater, once all these seats go down, you've got a very large flat loading area. So this can be utilised for multiple sports, with multiple tie-down points, loads and loads of space. Quite good for a little adventure car. You'll be able to get a little mattress in the back of there as well. Oh, I missed me turning. Back it up. We've got a lovely reversing cam with predicted turning angles. I feel like Audi are a little bit behind the curve with that. A lot of the what you would consider lesser spec vehicles have overhead camera systems now, which shows the vehicle in full and everything around it. It looks like my usual scenic spot is inundated with people probably getting the last before the national lockdown comes into play. I mean, this road's rough. This is a rough road what I'm on, and this thing just eating it up. If I was in my van, my transporter on that road, I would have shook the fillings out of my head. So my overall opinion of the car: it looks well, it drives well, it certainly goes well. It's got all the tech specs included, everything you'd expect from a premium car such as this. Would I own one? Absolutely. And if you're teetering on the edge between needing a 5-seater or a 7-seater, maybe your family's growing or you just need that extra space, you don't need to submit yourself to the ugly 7-seaters what are on the market. This, when sat next to a Ford S-Max, is unparalleled. And right now, you can pick one just like this up for cheaper than what you get a Ford S-Max. This one in particular is being sold by Hamworthy Car Centre, and it is less than £30,000. And to be honest, given a good clean, it wouldn't show its age at all. A massive thank you to Hamworthy Car Centre for letting me review this vehicle. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please do subscribe for more car reviews. I'm going to be doing much more in the future and videos similar to this and reviewing some cars what I've always wanted to drive. If you have any questions with regards to the vehicle, then please do drop a comment down below and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. And if not, I'm sure Hamworthy Car Centre will be able to answer them for you. That's me for now, and I'll catch you in the next video.